Welcome everyone to this webinar. I'm Dr. Jim Stelter, Superintendent of Bensenville District 2. With me today is Dr. Kay Dugan, Assistant Superintendent for Learning. We've provided this slide to give you a brief snapshot of the demographics of Bensenville District 2. As a race to the top district, Bensenville District 2 was an early implementer of PERA, the Performance Evaluation Reform Act, and had been working under its tenets since about 2012. This webinar was initiated by PEAC, the Performance Evaluation Advisory Council that was formed since PERA was passed into law in 2011. The council in previous years focused on developing recommendations for ISB rules, guidance documents, and evaluator trainings. This year, its focus is on listening to the field in order to identify and provide supports.
The purpose of the webinar is to share 3 positive impacts the new teacher evaluation process has had in our district. The first, the new teacher evaluation process overall, has most definitely been greatly improved under this legislation. We'll share specifics in just a bit. However, an additional focus today is to describe 2 other positive causal impacts that have resulted from PERA, namely the establishment of assessment literacy and job-embedded professional development. We will begin the webinar with the positive aspects of teacher evaluation itself. Then we will move to a description of how it led to system-wide establishment of assessment literacy, and then conclude the webinar with demonstrating how new teacher evaluation has impacted our professional development system.
Okay, let's get started. PERA requires the use of a scientifically researched framework for collecting unbiased evidence about a teacher's professional practice. We use Charlotte Danielson's framework, although there are others. The 4 causal impacts shown on this slide are descriptive of the positive changes we have observed in Bensenville District 2 that are resultant of new teacher evaluation.
Using a more valid and reliable evaluation framework changed our administrative council meeting conversations significantly. We now reserve 1 meeting a month to read instructional best practice articles or view lesson videos to discuss how we can become more consistent in collecting evidence, calibrating ratings, and providing feedback to teachers through ongoing calibration. These meetings also increase our own instructional leadership capacity as evaluators. In the short video, you will observe one of these meetings that serves as evidence of how these 2 positive impacts of new teacher evaluation are being actualized in District 2. Please keep in mind you won't be able to hear the specific dialogue among administrators in this video. However, the intent is for you to hear the buzz and observe the energy in the room.
No, I agree. That's where we, that's a rush. And I think that's, we hit it at our staff meeting, just definitely.
I think we did. Yeah, okay, great. So,
I'd love to jump into.
so some insights that I derived from reading this text was that, the planning aspects of the teacher's work is essential. And how do we support teachers in planning? That's like the main evaluative leadership application. Teachers need help with that. So how do we support them? How do we create, teams of teachers who are effective?
Also, the use of the Danielson research-based evaluation framework has enabled us to weave our system-wide best practice initiatives systemically right into the evaluation tool. Evaluators, in partnership with teacher teams, now align school improvement initiatives targeted in school improvement plans with the Danielson framework. This slide is an example of how they aligned the components of readers and writers workshops with fidelity, so everyone is crystal clear about how these practices should be implemented significantly. Critical not only to improving teachers' professional practice, but also for collecting evidence and providing accurate feedback. Now, let's move on to the second positive impact of PERA in our district, which is the establishment of system-wide assessment literacy. Why is this a desirable attribute and outcome? Well, since student growth metrics are now part of a teacher's evaluation, it is critical that assessments are valid and reliable. For example, in our district, and prior to new standards and evaluation, our local assessments were predominantly comprised of multiple choice items with little opportunity for students to apply knowledge and skills. As a result, what we discovered is that our students could pass a multiple choice rules of the road test, but could not actually drive the car. All of our students struggled with responding to open-ended, critical thinking type questions because those questions were absent from our curriculum, instruction, and assessments. New teacher evaluation shed a spotlight on this problem, given that our Type 2 and 3 assessments were going to be used as part of teacher evaluation. We couldn't have our assessment water dirty if we were planning on using it to evaluate staff. Of equal importance was the fact that we were using these assessments to make instructional decisions about students' intervention. So, new teacher evaluation led to the development of a professional development plan in District 2 to correct our assessment shortcomings. The first thing we did on the journey to designing better, more rigorous assessments was to research the work of Norm Webb to ensure our assessments had a balance of literal, multiple choice type question items, as well as performance task questions too. On a side note, but important to today's conversation, our research also indicated that we were not alone in the literal questioning only dilemma. Take a look. This bar graph shows how 8th grade students across most states scored on their state assessment in reading as compared to the NAEP assessment. NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, is the largest nationally representative assessment of what U.S. students know and can do in various subjects. As you can see by this graph, 8th grade students in all of the states depicted scored significantly higher on their state assessments as compared to NAEP. To understand the reason for this discrepancy, let's look at some sample test items from both assessments. This slide is representative in an old Illinois grade 7 ISAT science type question. Notice, students simply need to pick an answer among 4 choices from this multiple choice item. The item is a lower level Norm Webb DOK level. Now, here's a sample NAEP question item. You can readily see that this item requires more cognitive energy than the state assessment item we just looked at. In the NAEP question, students must apply their knowledge to solve this knotty problem, which is at a higher Norm Webb DOK level. The state and NAEP assessment item study helped us to identify why our students were struggling with applying new information independently. As a result, we developed these 5 questions to determine the virtue of an assessment and its inclusion into our assessment system for teacher evaluation metrics as well as within our own curriculum scope and sequence, which then led to the establishment of a comprehensive balanced assessment system in District 2. Resources for you to learn more about designing valid and reliable assessments are listed here. Rick Stiggins is a must-read for understanding the assessment process. One other initiative we established to ascertain that our assessments, especially those associated with teacher-student growth metrics, were valid and reliable, was to create district-wide inter-rater reliability teams. In this video, you will observe administrators and teachers side by side evaluating teacher assessments in terms of their rigor and alignment to standards, as well as the rubric scores the teachers gave to their students. Once again, capturing what individuals are saying is not the goal of this video. The goal is for you to observe the engagement and process.
Where was I? Las más características de ella es que ella es muy amable con todos y respetuosa porque le presta cosas a personas y a veces se siente feliz porque está con su familia y tiene un señor muy bonito nuevo. So this doesn't match with this, but she's got character trait. This is the same as this though. So she technically has, yeah, this is just for the girl. So she's got responsable, amable, buena, very simple though.
So on your rubric, because you guys have
she
changed
does.
the
So she's responsible.
So
and
on the
amable,
rubric
she's
it says
gracias.
student explains how it
This one doesn't give an explanation, but she's got she's got this one.
So basically you're saying yes,
She's got one so far.
without using the word you're saying.
That's correct.
So there's more than
Okay, well here, let's look. Look, if you look at the other ones, this is what you're looking for, right? This would be a true four, an exemplar. Okay, this student would be this student. This student is having expressions. Okay, so that's. Okay. Is there any variation of this that would allow you to be consistent? They have the criteria, but it's not.
But they would have had to either write a system and then substitute or start off.
Or show, I mean, they show.
The last and perhaps the most impactful causal impact of the new teacher evaluation data collection process in Bensonville District 2 is how it resulted in high impact, job-embedded professional development. Prior to new evaluation, we were engaging staff in a collection of random, fragmented, often off-site workshops with no return on our student outcomes investment. Now, the planning sequence for professional learning begins with what do students need to know, understand, and be able to do to demonstrate proficiency of rigorous standards. And given that information, what knowledge and skill do our educators need to move all students along this continuum? Then, at that point, professional development opportunities are designed that strategically and systemically build staff professional practice capacity. In essence, new teacher evaluation connects a teacher's professional practice to student growth outcomes.
Demonstration classrooms are just one example of our job-embedded professional development that ensure your high-impact classroom initiatives are implemented system-wide in all classrooms as intended. Very briefly, demonstration classrooms place about 10 staff members into a classroom as the lesson unfolds. Essentially, we move professional development out of the presentation room and into the classroom. The observed lessons are not scripted, but instead are the actual lessons the teachers conduct as part of their day-to-day curriculum. The lessons are not edited. So if a chair flies across the room, well, so be it. Welcome to life in the classroom. Now, we've never had a flying chair, but we have had a couple of throw-ups. The goal is to highlight how effective teachers handle both instructional and behavioral issues in the moment. Please contact us if you would like to talk further about the Classroom Demonstration Initiative.
Another example of job-embedded professional development occurred within our professional learning community meetings. New teacher evaluation changed conversations at these meetings significantly. Take a peek.
Noticed that some of my struggling readers seem to be struggling more this year than I had seen in the past. And what I mean by that is, in the past, if most of my struggling readers were a first grade or a primer, and then this year I have a larger chunk of pre-primer. So, you know, I guess moving forward, I just need to really look at their PRI to see what their miscues were. But overall, I kind of noticed that their miscues were a lot of insertions. So my students would be reading and just putting in words, or just reading the right words but then adding different things. So that's what I noticed in general this year.
I saw similar things with my students where when I saw students who were struggling before with their BRIs, it would mostly be with not a phonics, a fluency. And this year I'm seeing a lot more phonics that I'm going to need to do with my students, because I'm seeing that they're struggling a little more with sounding out words. And I see that when I look at the students and how they're reading, I am noticing some insertions, just like you, but I'm also seeing a lot of students reading for meaning, but the word doesn't look at all like the word that they say. So, you know, instead of dog, they might say puppy. So they know what the story's about, but they're mixing up the words that they're using. I saw that on quite a few of mine.
Maybe with that S, some of it might be like cultural, maybe. But I still think I see it a lot, like even when we get to the Tejasle, I see it a lot that they're doing it at a greater amount than before. So you can kind of tell. So I have a feeling it might not be so much culture.
Instructional Rounds is the brainchild of Dr. Richard Elmore from Harvard School of Education. It is a strategy intended to help education leaders and practitioners develop a shared, common understanding of what high-quality instruction looks like and what schools and districts need to do to support it. New teacher evaluation requires this kind of understanding if evaluations are going to be valid and reliable. Prior to the new evaluation system, we would find teachers caring deeply about their students, but from classroom to classroom, there was a high degree of variability. Instructional Rounds provided consistency.
Good morning. Welcome to our first instructional rounds of the school year. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about our problem of practice this year, as it has changed. First of all, our problem of practice, as you know, is a problem that we as a school have identified as something that we want to work together to improve. It's something that is directly tied to the instructional core, and that we feel if we make improvements in this area, it will increase student achievement. And so in the past, last school year, we had a problem of practice, and we, throughout the school year, realized that it was a little bit big, a little bit too meaty, and we really weren't able to focus in on what we wanted and to make improvements in those areas. So as we went along the year, we kind of started narrowing it, but we still, when we got to our final problem of practice, which was based on questioning and feedback in the classroom, we still weren't getting the evidence that we wanted to see to really make changes. So
a major lesson to learn is that this work is a journey. It does not happen overnight. The key to sustaining any initiative lies in the extent to which schools have internalized district-wide goals and engage the whole school in focusing on the essentials of improving teaching and learning for all students. PERA and new teacher evaluation were critical components for our ability to actualize student achievement goals. It's been a pleasure sharing the positive outcomes we have observed in Bensonville District 2, resultant from PERA and new teacher evaluation. If there is anything we can do to help you in your journey, do not hesitate to contact us.